Hello, hello. We live. My first live chat. If something go wrong, I'm sorry. I'm trying my best. Um, I'm the beekeeper, Sebastian. So beekeeping gardening. You do watching some of you my videos, update from my apis and from my hives, from my operations. Um, so I invite uh, guests to here first time. We see let's get on. I hope you watch it and get on and we see how's that going on. So why I said questions and answers. I got quite few questions was about the plastic on top of the hive. Um, well, I put the plastic on top above the brood box. Um, yes, I do. I put a plastic brood box. It was a friend of mine is 35 years experienced beekeeper, and he's using this for many years, and he always using and and that works. So I believe if you like try, you should try. It definitely make it massive different in the hive. It's huge. The temperature in the hive is completely different. But you have to remember you have to be a mesh floor. So for the winter here in UK we open the mesh floor and basically we close the top. So it's um, it's 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 basically when open the bottom, the top is closed, so we seal up with the plastic, the top one. So that's how I do. Um, and then basically, um, when you get temperature, a lot of people say it was a moisture, there's a lot of damp in the side. I believe it's quite important to. There's not much water in there. The water actually go on the side in there on the hives, and they're actually using the water because in the winter they need the water. So it's so crucial using the water and also the temperature. You keep them in quite nice warm. So the couple of hives I didn't put the plastic, that it's huge are different in the hives. And basically, um, the, most of the hives which I cover, they are really strong. You can see that temperature is make a massive difference in the hive. Um, and basically, a lot of people think, oh, we we might we might get something. Uh, how do you say to you? Um, and not to, you know, because people that can damp and moisture kill the bees. Yes, I agree. But if it's really wet, a plastic doesn't make that wet. So what I basically do, I put on the top of the boot. If you get fond or patty or anything in there, I just slap it on the top of the frames for a couple of reasons. So sometimes the bees doesn't want to go above half an inch or inch up in crown board, and that is massive, um, massive different in our beekeeping here. So climate in UK beekeeping, the climate whereby in UK is completely different. What's in United States, what's in um, possibly in Germany, possibly in Russia or Alaska or Canada. It's completely different. So in different places, you need to be careful in the winter time how you want the winter time bees and everything. Um, So I'm really pleased. I tested for the first time and then it works. So I do keep testing on the hives, have that effect on there, and that's how it's good result. So like I said, the plastic is only using on a mesh floors only. So um, the mesh floors only. We put a plastic on top. Mesh floor is open, and then plastic on top, about up on top the board brood box, and that's how I slap it up on this. And up is super. You could put it oak in there. It's up to you. And then you keep a quite nice temperature in the hive. Um, and then basically they they do really well. So the next one question was about um, the temperature, what we have in the winter here. So someone did mention to me, emailed me, he said, what temperature we have in here in UK? Well, we have, depending, this year, it's a funny year, funny winter, I would say. Um, we have Christmas time was 15, 14 in the day, 16 sometime, and the nighttime was like 8, 9, 10. So that was like over 2 weeks. So um, the bees was basically brooding quite heavily. So um, when a lot of people say, "Oh, they're broodless." Yes, they've been broodless, but end of that period of time when the queen actually start um, laying larvae and so start getting brood. That come in a problem because the storage in hives start get less and less and less. As soon as they start feeding larvae, then it's come problem. Some of the beekeepers mention they don't need to go check, they're all good, they're heavy, and then gradually some of the beekeepers lose their hives. Um, and this is a huge problem where I believe if you if you're working right, check them up. I'm not say weekly. In winter you don't need to weekly, but in temperatures where going up and down, you should you should really check. Uh, for that reason, um, if you're not checking the hives, they are basically you can lose them. The storage, and especially when they're queen laying, it's some problem. Um, so a lot of people think, well, yeah, right, we got plenty of food, we feed them up heavily, they're really good. So let's ignore them, they're fine. And so if you have mesh floor, you have plastic on top, it's only lift the roof up and you can see everything in. How the store looks like, how many bees in there, what's the structure on top in there, and you don't need to be um, worry about they not going to be um, problems or anything like this. There's no problem there. I believe the bees um, important check the map. Now in the winter, I believe 3 weeks, 2 3 weeks, you need to check in UK. Different in United States, in different weather. You can always look in the weather, and that's the important thing. So that's my answer. Um, secondly, so I'm furious beekeeping, um, and my option is always say inspect them as soon as the time comes in inspection. Inspect bees in your operation. if you have 10 hives or 5 hives or 2 hives, as soon as the swarming time comes, make sure you actually um, get correct every 7 days or every 10 days. You there, you just check them quickly. You know where they are. Is any quinces, any problems in there? Um, but it's it, it's a good thing to make sure you check the storage as well. But you know how they have food, how they bring in pollen in there, or there's any forage in there. So this as well. It's not just all winter. Sometimes the weather could turn up in miserable weather, rain for 5 days, and they just got a little bit left food. So as soon as got that, that is huge problem. So yeah. So I would say, so we got guest. Hello, Greg.
How are you?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Thank you. Thank you. Managed to sneaking in and coming in. Have I get a little bit get a little chat.
Yeah, got a little bit of time here before we get ready for dinner time. So just wanted to pop in and say hello and made sure you're having fun doing what you're doing.
Yeah. So I don't know. Greg is he's running farm. He's a bee farmer from United States, from Ohio. I watching his YouTube and his friends Bruce, Brian and all that, and Ian and all this. This is amazing what they do. These guys in there. So yeah. Um, thanks, Greg. You turn up, and maybe one day we will get all of together in there and get talk chat about more about bees. So
I
um,
think we're in how many different time zones? I know between me and Bruce and Brian, we're in at least if we're not traveling, at least two different time zones. And then you're now where
um,
exactly are you located? You're in somewhere in the UK. Is that where you're at?
yes, I am. Yeah. So I'm in UK and Hampshire, South UK.
Okay. What's your weather like there right now?
Um, it's cold. Temperature coming around about this morning was -5, and we will get around about -4. We don't have snow here. It's quite close to the water, so it's not much snow here in this area. It's quite warm in
Okay.
this area. Normally was nice winter, warm winter. Right now the climate changing. We have Christmas. I don't remember Christmas was 15, 16 plus in Christmas. You know that was crazy. But yeah, but it was night was really hot, and now the temperature up around about 6 in the days, -5 in the nights, which is perfect for bees. Now it's because they've been flying. Like I went on it before Christmas. I just looked at them and I couldn't believe it. Right, they flying just like in the spring and summer. I was like, no way, no way. They've been looking for anything to bring on to the hive. So
What temperatures do your bees tend to fly during the
that
wintertime?
well, then about 6, 7. I've seen many times some of the bees 6, 7. They're going out and flying. Yeah,
So your 6, 7 Celsius must be. I'm not smart enough to
plus yeah, I would say.
know how they correlate, but in Fahrenheit,
Well,
we're
in fact,
right around 45 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit when the bees are out flying usually here.
yeah, yeah. So that'd be around about that. Yeah. So yeah, bees. But it's time now to get preparation. I go ahead because is a time to get everything ready. So
Yeah. When how far here in Ohio? I know Castle Hives. Brian's on here, and Bruce is he's at work. I think trying to check in, but
yeah,
it's a little bit
yeah,
different in each parts of the country here in the United States. But for us here in Ohio, when we get to about maple blossom, when the maple
yeah,
trees start to bloom, we're about in a safe zone. If our bees are alive and doing well, then they're on cruise control from there. They tend to do pretty good. Do you guys have a similar type of a tree bloom that comes in, or some kind of natural indicator for you of when you're
Mm,
kind of at a safe zone?
no, they normally when the uh, canola, we call it rapesedoyo, but canola turn up
Hmm.
here in normally flowering in April,
Okay.
very in April, and all about temperature. Well, last year when canola start flowering, it start beautiful. You could smell it from very far, and then it's just cold snap coming. It was probably 6, 7 degrees, raining and raining and raining. The bees was just basically um, staying hive. They didn't even want to go, and they was just very close, probably 5, 10 foot from the hive they have. They didn't even go. They just
Hmm.
basically ignore this because their life
Yeah.
is more important too. But I was very interesting was because I was just talking early about people get storage. They're just thinking about are bees good in the winter? They had heavy enough. They not check, and then come and open the roof and they no, this is disaster. This is the same and you could have in the summer in spring when the weather turn up gradually for 2 3 weeks raining and they don't have much storage there. As almost it brewed, they need the food.
Right.
So
Hmm.
a lot of people doesn't take notes. A lot of beekeepers, beginners especially, they think, well, we got flowers coming, we okay. And then last year I have a friend of mine, he lost a hive, and he was like, wow, what's going on? I was like, well, yeah, you didn't check them before the rain, and that's what ended up in disaster.
Hi,
But
Bruce. Thanks for checking in there. We'll
yeah,
see you a little later, Bruce.
yeah. Hello, Bruce. Hello, Brian. Who was in there? Uh, yeah, yeah. Good question, Greg. Uh, um, hive beetles. Uh, there've been quite a lot talking about hive beetles. Do you have problem with hive beetles in Ohio?
We do, and they're definitely a problem in the southern areas of the United
Yeah,
States. They're starting to become a problem in the Midwest, and
yeah,
they're kind of moving up north from there. But there's a lot of different ideas and opinions about hive beetles and what to do about it. And it seems like for every steadfast rule, there's always an exception to that. It seems like, or a contrary observation to that, and I think that's speaks to the the diversity geologically speaking, and also soil types and things like that. Here in
yeah.
Ohio, they can be a problem, and they can be a big problem even in established strong colonies in the sun. I think Bruce and I were talking about that maybe in one of the last streams or one of the last live chats. But
The,
yeah, it can
we
be a problem here. How about you guys?
well, we right now we don't have, but they've been bringing a lot of bees before packaging from Italy, and beekeepers start get worried now because they gradually could be in hives. The packaging was bringing in a major amount, and so they could bring in, even they believe, even if you import queen, they could come with the queen, small larvae, and they end up in, how to say, big colony of them, and they could destroy, like you said, hives. So what you when you have hive beetles, what you using, what you would say the good thing, what you give a good tip,
Well,
what you using, how you
some of the
manage
things that
strength.
yeah, some of the things that work for us is just trying to be. There is something to the size of the colony at certain times of year, but once they get a foothold, it's can be hard to kind of make up for that lost ground. What we've found this last year experimenting, it's not something that I think is suitable for all context and scale. But if you're, maybe at 100 colonies or less, and you have some yards where your bees are maybe they're not moving a whole lot, you're not really migrating with them. Um, I think this method can be pretty beneficial. But what we've been doing is using black landscape fabric. It's a woven polypropylene ground cover. A lot of the nurseries and things, tree nurseries, plant nurseries, use those here as
So
a ground cover.
under the hives, you put the plastic, all of the,
Right. Those will
and
go
then you put
underneath the
a,
hive stands.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Um, and
and then they will not come in like this on that.
Well, what we noticed is when we did have a colony or two that had hive beetles, when we would open up the box to clean the bottom board out, the hive beetles would um, really they did not want to be exposed to light, so they would jump off the bottom board and then jump straight down to the ground. As soon as they got exposed to the sunlight on top of that black plastic, they started to shrivel up, and not a single one of them made it off the black plastic. So I think in this case, where you have if you go through the life cycle of the hive beetle, as they leave the hive to go burrow in the ground, if they hit that black plastic, that's going to help prevent that opportunity
Yeah,
to do that. There's a lot of folks here in the states that use lots of different things, beneficial bacteria, nematodes, diatomaceous earth. Um, I'm not sure that doesn't, I don't think, work for me for what we're doing. The black plastic seems to work pretty good, um, but also using I'm not sure what they would be called in your neck of the woods, but um, for house cleaning, what you use for dry sweeping your floors or countertops. It's a dry cleaning type of a pad that's real fibrous. It's unscented. Here we call them the major brand is Swiffer sheets. I'm not sure what they're called in the UK, but I'm sure you've got something similar. It's a kind
yeah,
of like a woven polypropylene spun fiber type of material, and it's really,
yeah.
if you rub it on your fingers, it just kind of sticks to your fingers. It's real just catchy. Do you
I
guys have
think I
something
know what
like
you're
that?
talking about. I think I
Yeah,
know what
a
you're talking
cleaning, a
about. Yeah.
dry cleaning pad is probably what
Right.
they would
Yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yep.
yeah.
And those have worked out really good. Putting those on the top bars in a colony, especially because the bees tend to want to run those hive beetles up into the corners and the upper portions of a hive. So we've had pretty good luck having just those dry sheets on top. The hive
Yeah,
beetles would get stuck in there, and we've never lost a single queen. In that, occasionally we'll have a honeybee that'll get stuck in there, and sometimes they die. They don't get out. But for every one honeybee that's ever gotten caught in one of those, we've probably caught
yeah,
40 to 50 hive beetles. So it's a little bit of a trade off. That seems to work out pretty good. Um, there's some things that folks use here that we haven't had the best of luck with, um, using like beetle blaster traps with mineral oil or diatomaceous earth inside of there. I just I'm not seeing enough uh, gain on that approach, so we kind of abandoned that for the most part. And the other last thing that we really do, other than the landscape fabric and those Swiffer sheets, is we mix up some Crisco with diatomaceous earth and some eucalyptus oil, and we put a real
eucalyptus.
thin
Yeah,
film on the bottom boards or in the corners of the hive. And the idea is the um, the beetles go to ingest the Crisco as a protein, and then in turn they consume and ingest the diatomaceous earth, and from the inside out it cuts them up and dehydrates them and causes them to die. And we had a little bit of a trial last year where we had, I don't know, maybe in a small trial of about maybe 30 little colonies. I noticed there were about four of them on a stand that had a lot of hive beetles, and I checked the bottom boards, and those are the ones that did not have that little bit of beetle butter on the bottom.
mm,
So it's hard to say if that is exactly the reason why, but what I can say is the hives that had that kind of a pre-treatment of it, they did fine. Then I didn't have an issue with it. So those are a couple things that we kind of
yeah.
keep in
But
mind.
in here in UK, we using some quite a lot of beekeepers using mesh flow in the hives.
What is it?
Mesh flow. So
Mesh
it's open
floor?
floor, mesh floor. Yeah,
Oh, a
we
screen
open
bottom
floor,
board.
screen
Okay.
board on board. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's could be as well problem for because they could sneak it in through the larvae could coming in or they could do really damage. I believe. I was listening one of his YouTube video, Bob. But been he done a great video about the screen boards and all the full floor,
Mhm.
and I did ask him mention out why he using. He said he don't want anybody anytime see the screen boards. He said basically full floor is the best floor. What you using, Craig? You using as well, Greg,
That's all I
the
nope. Yeah, I don't use any
full floor?
screen bottom boards, all solid
Yeah,
bottom boards. We really started using that years ago, making splits.
yeah,
Here in Ohio, in this part of the states, we have to be careful on when we try to make splits too early that the brood stays
yeah,
warm enough.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And so we were losing a lot of brood. They were getting chilled. When we switched to solid bottom boards, it seemed like there
yeah,
was a little bit more heat retained in the colony, and we had less chill brood, which means those splits took off faster, and they spent less
yeah.
time hauling out dead bees. So it seemed to work out. That doesn't hasn't helped us with hive beetles. I wouldn't say, not in our area. Hasn't really helped us with anything. I
Yeah.
don't know other than that. It just helps keep the brood warmer. It seems like.
Well, I'm running around 20, 26 colonies right now, and what I could say, I have half colonies on screen board on the mesh floor, and half in the full floor, and I see huge difference uh, in the hives.
What do you see the
Uh,
difference there?
well, you can see the bees quite how do you say? Basically, the clusters of the bees, I could say it's completely different. The temperature in winter is quite important.
Hmm.
I do a little bit with the mesh floor. I do a little bit. I'm not sure you saw my video, but I put plastic on top of the brood box, so the temperature it's quite good inside in the hive. And but it is my opinion. It's different. The bees and everything. I'm going to change all my hives to the full floor, to closed floor. I don't want
I think it has
a
more
mesh.
pros than it does cons. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
and if you're like a lot of us, and you're bootstrapping your outfit, you're making a lot of your own equipment too. And when it
yeah.
comes to building your own bottom boards, it's far easier to build a solid bottom board, than
Oh
it
yeah,
is to full screen. And I don't know what it is about that screen. I mean, I've got places on my hands from that screen where from 5 or 6 years ago, you get cut with that galvanized metal,
yeah, yeah.
and you get
I did
these
cut
weird
a
little
few
hard
times.
spots, and they just hurt
Yeah,
for years and
yeah,
years and years. So, they have a purpose, and we use a lot of the galvanized screening. We've been doing some things with like you might have seen Bob use the double screen boards.
yeah,
Those
yeah,
are really helpful. So we've been building those. We put some screening on the bottom side of our winter feeding shims. So
yeah, yeah.
we still use the stuff, and we're going to get busted up by it. But it's that it's I think a lot of folks are migrating to the solid bottoms, um, and we all want to we look at the bees in nature and in tree cavities and things like that, and we try to have a correlation, and we try to mimic a lot of those things with our own management, even though it's kind of a hard thing to really do in a full context. But
Yeah.
you know, I think if you look at a bee tree, it is a solid floor. It's full of trash. It's full of junk. And there's the bees still regulate and do a pretty good job. That's the only downfall. You're still going to have debris build up on a screen board,
Of course, yes, you
but
will.
you're not going to tear
They,
it up cleaning it off on it
no,
like you would on a solid.
you still can clean this in time when the temperature raise up
Yeah,
around about 15, 16, which me I don't know that be around about 70s in your place. Then you could change the boards for new ones to clean that up, burn it
yeah,
up, and put it back again.
yeah,
Hygiene is more important than anything else. But the temperature hive, the bees important to help the bees get the right temperature in the hives. So yeah. Well, another thing I got a question. I like your one of your videos I was watching on your queenly. You're doing the queens, breeding
hmm.
the queens. What you will give a tips on your breeding, on your experience in breeding queens?
Well, a lot of folks, I think, want to jump right in. They get bit by the bee bug, and they get their bees over winter, and they want to make splits, and
Yeah,
it's natural to want to push the envelope and try to do the best you can with it. But I think a lot of folks, they're maybe a little too quick to jump right into grafting. Grafting is not necessarily difficult, but there are some fundamental things, about the life cycle and the timing, that are outside of the grafting part, that are kind of there's a little bit of a balance on learning those things. I always like to recommend folks, rather than going into grafting at first, take an overwintered colony that has a second year queen, and that you like all the things about her, and just crowd that colony out and have that colony make as many queen cells as you want, and get them to that point where they actually do want to swarm, and then either cut those cells out or move those frames around and make those splits. Let the bees do all of the work. Now what you can do is you can actually focus on the life cycle. You can focus on how many days it takes to produce the cell, to cap it, when it
Yeah.
emerges, when to put it, when to make the split, when to introduce the cell to the split. Once you get really good at those basic fundamentals, when it comes time for grafting, it's an easy transition. However, if you're basing your entire success ratio on queen rearing based on that full picture of the actual art of grafting, getting it into a starter, getting the cell actually capped, and then introducing the cap to a split, there are
Yeah.
so many components and variables there that it can get very discouraging if you're trying to do all of that in the same window of learning. So I always recommend folks, break it out into two separate learning segments, maybe even two separate years. Year one, if you want to get into it, crowd out that second year overwintered queen, have the colony make those cells for you, cut them out, split them out, move those frames around, make your splits, make your increase, learn the dynamics in the life cycle of that process. The next year, once you're comfortable and feel like you have a good grip on that, then go into actual grafting. And what you'll notice is not only will your grafts be a little bit more on target, but the success rate and how they take are going to be more successful. And I think that's a
Mm.
lot of folks get discouraged and they give up. So if we can get past that to have some results that are positive, I think that's huge.
Yes, that's absolutely. I I agree with you, and I done a grafting myself. I know it's really important. People that think is oh, I'm going graft, I'm going graft. It's a lot of learning, timing, like you say. You make sure you got the right larvae. Very very important in a lot of people say oh you could have 2 days a larvae. No no no, it's too big, too old. You need to be maximum. I would say 6 to 8 hours old, and that's the best thing you could do. I was watching you've been Greg, you've been with Bob with I believe this is one of the best queen breeding I ever see in my eyes. This is something this I was watching quite few times, not just once, but as watching, and I recommend people to watch the. It's incredible what the guys do and the speed and the size of the larvae. How important is the size of the larvae? So Greg just mentioned timing, timing. Yes, I agree with you as well. Better you get this strong colonies, wet colonies is getting full power and they're a good colony. And like you said, you could have a lot of queen cells there, and you could make a lot of nukes, and you could have bring on queens.
We made a
So
lot of the growth in our bee yard up until we got to about I would say maybe 100 colonies. A lot of the selling nukes and selling queens we're just letting the bees do all the work. And what that
yeah,
lets you do is focus on other areas that you can improve on and do better with while they're doing all the work of actually making the highest quality cells. Anyone who's grafted queens or has worked with natural swarm cells, I think just about everyone, including Bob, will agree that the absolute best queens come from the swarm cells that the bees
yeah,
make.
oh yeah,
That's why every
Ab-
backyard beekeeper should at least attempt to do that. Now, there are times where getting a mated queen, a good quality mated queen, and bringing in new genetics is crucial. It's huge. There's a lot of folks in our circle that do that. I brought a lot of
yeah,
genetics up from Bob to our place in Ohio to do just that. But there's such an art to the video you mentioned down with the Florida beekeepers. Bob and I were down visiting with the Warners at Indian Summer, and it was an incredible opportunity because I was the one behind the camera, so I'm filming everything going on, so I get to see it from the camera screen, and then I get to see it later on YouTube, and it's got a whole different thing altogether.
yeah,
But the Werner family, Pete Ellis, they are just top notch
yes,
guys. Not only are they
absolutely, I
at
agree.
the
Yeah,
top of the game as far as beekeeping and queen rearers, they are some
yeah,
of the best humans that I've ever met, and that was an incredible blessing to be a part of that. But they, a lot of guys will say while while the genetics matter, what makes a quality queen isn't necessarily the genetics, it's how the queen is reared. There are so many steps that actually happen before you even take your grafting tool to a cell that are going to dictate the quality of that queen. And those are the things that sometimes we completely overlook because all we're thinking is, do I need a German tool? Do I need a Chinese tool? Do I need this?
yes,
What cups do I use? What's my there's so many details, but getting down to actually some of the fundamentals that make a quality queen, it's hard
yes,
to really get your head around it sometimes. So
yeah,
it's a learning process. This whole
oh,
thing.
absolutely,
We're going to learn every day for the rest of our life until we're dead. And then when we're dead, maybe the real learning actually starts. We have no idea. So you can't stop. You can't get too comfortable. You can't get
oh yeah,
complacent. You have to
I
just
agree.
keep doing better and better and better and keep trying new things.
Yeah, well, me in UK right now. I did mention you before. There's a lot of opportunity to the guys get your own stock because been in massive import here. Queens, they're still importing queens from Europe, but it's not what they used to be last few years. Now they're more tougher to bring in queens. So people going breeding queens in there, and a lot of people need before they actually put a hive, they need to make sure that queen is mated and make sure they're not. It's a not easy assess this in the box.
Right.
If they're correct, they will be coming and popped up in the game. But I breed last year queens myself, and I'm really pleased. I have 100% mated queens in area, one of the area, and then like you did mention, there's a lot of details coming to that, and also a lot of people may make a say mated nooks. I decide to not using mated nooks. I will
Hmm.
do maybe a couple for more trials in that place, but I'm using typical normal nooks like Bob put in his yard. You probably using nooks as well, I'm right? Because here they're using quite the mini nooks they're using
The
the mini
mini, yeah,
mini
mini
mating.
nukes
Yeah,
versus mating nukes. Yeah, there's a
no,
difference. Everyone's kind of got
it,
their own approach on
yes,
that.
you got to be in time. Catch the queen. If she's get too quick laying, she's going to swarm, and there's the end of it. Nothing
They
there.
can.
Yep.
It's
And so,
definitely a time management thing with the minis. Is you have to be
yep,
in those things 3 times a week. It seems like on top of feed, on top of make sure they're not plugging out too quick. She's got a place to lay.
yep. And
They're
also, I did discover it myself. You more time you give her laying, that's better queen. As soon as you take a move it to the different height, to the different colony, they will be accepting it 100%, and she will be laying nicely. Also, of course, it's a temperature as well. When the mated, everything. If it's enough drones in there and everything, but the timing it's crucial, and also the the queen more laying, it's better. You breeding a lot queens through the year yourself. I'm sure you agree with that.
well,
Sometimes they
they
take it
do.
2 weeks after they take a queens out from the mated box and they say, oh, they're good.
I think if you're in
Um,
some areas of the country, like let's say Northern California, I think you can get by with less time because of the weather. Here
yeah,
in Ohio specifically, we the weather seems to be so goofy during queen rearing season. We might have 100 or 200 queens at a time that we might be stuck in 7 days of off and on rain during their time where they should be out on a mating flight. And so when we see those queens and they're not doing what they should, those queens don't leave here. They don't go out. They don't. That's just a part of it. Um, in different parts of the country where the weather's better, they might get a fantastic mating flight right away and be able to get a queen out 12 to 17 days later. In Ohio, it's a little bit trickier than that. So our time frames, I think, are a little bit longer. I think one of the big benefits is because we could probably, you could put 4 different queen breeders on here, and they would all probably have a little different opinion on that. But I think one thing we could agree on is at scale also kind of dictates your path on that. If right now, because of our we're always time poor. It seems like there's never quite enough time. So what helps us in making good quality queens is we're using the same equipment. We're using the same medium or deep frames in all of our boxes. And so all we have to do is take a 10 frame box and split it into three, or we can
Mm.
we can make them in a 5 frame box or split a 5 frame box in two. Um, that lets us use the same frames throughout all the colonies to reach that goal. When you get
Yeah,
into mini mating nukes, you have a different size frames that you're working with that need drawn out ahead of time to even have those ready
yeah,
to do any of that work. And that's also a challenge in some parts of the country. In California and the South and areas where the season is way longer, they have a little bit more time to prepare and prep and get those things ready. And we can certainly get them ready here in Ohio. It just takes a little bit longer to do so. And so our window of time is a lot shorter here. So we kind of, at least for what our goals and our scale and our
yeah.
context, we primarily just use full size frames, but just it'll be a 2 or 3 frame box or compartment that we're mating the queens from.
Yeah, that's basically yes. I agree with you. What we have challenge in UK here, it's the, the rain here. We have a massive amount of rain. So when you will say, oh, it's a good time for queens. You got to be really you in the window will be 7 days. The window or 2 weeks window where they could go and mate it and come back if they come back. And that's it because after that you got rain for 2 weeks and it could be end of your season of breeding queens. So
Yep.
it's the temperature in the temperature here. Some of the summers it was lovely, but sometime it's quite rain, cold. It's really difficult. And yeah, like you say, it's timing, and the timing it's important. So yeah,
It's all
um,
about the birds and the bees here. It seems like it gets to a point to
yeah,
where we start when the weather's warm enough, when the crab apples blossom, we can really do no wrong. We go 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 go, and then we pray we don't have any rain, and then eventually the season shifts and it's all about dragonflies and barn
yeah,
swallows, and they hang
yeah.
out in the trees and they fly
Then they get
around and they really start destroying those queens, and we start seeing fewer and fewer returns. And then it's time to start cutting everything back and kind of mitigating the risk and moving feeding and making sure everyone's got pollen and growing out the established colonies from there. So it's every year it seems to be a little bit different,
we have we have a problem with yellow jackets here, wasps here. They're like end of August, September, can be difficult here. They wipe off any nooks you have. The queens just mate it. They could be wipe off if you don't. If you
yeah.
miss something, they just basically wipe them off, and that's what we have here. Yeah, Brian, that you have expert not far from you. You could get learning from Greg grafting. I'm pretty sure he could give you lessons.
And
Good,
all it
nice.
takes is a couple donuts, Brian. We work for
Yeah.
donuts
Oh,
around here. It
I
seems
love
like,
donuts
doesn't
as well. Yeah. Oh,
it?
mamma mia. I can't wait for the donuts. Yeah.
Well,
Um.
Sebastian, it's probably didn't have a lot of time tonight, but wanted to
Yeah.
just stop in and
Thank you.
say hello and
Yeah.
support what you're doing here. Keep up the good work. We'll see you on maybe some chats in the future and see you on the YouTube. But thanks for having us in. We appreciate your time.
Yeah. Thank you very much. You
Okay.
gave a little bit head up on Queens breeding and also the Hive Beetles, which they are hot in here in UK now. A lot of people discussing about them. So thank you for a lot of information and tips and everything, Greg. So
You bet.
have a great day.
You bet. Stay
And
warm. Good luck. And remember to be the lighthouse. We'll catch you next time.
yeah, see you later. Bye bye. So thank you guys and see you next time. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Craig. And thanks, Bruce. And thanks, Brooklands honeybees. Have a nice day or have a nice evening. Thank you. See you next time.